Welcome back to Politics Tonight, everyone. Thank you so much for staying with us. Tonight we're focused on food pricing and national stability, and I've been speaking with Dr. Muda Yusuf and Mr. Niyi Akinsiju. They are our guests for tonight. Let me come to you, Dr. Yusuf. I mean, do you think or do you believe that this latest steps taken by Yemi Cardoso will help in stabilizing our Naira, our currency? Because some analysts have come on this show to say these steps are just temporary measures. They're just interventionist steps and cannot really do so much.
No, the steps are major shifts in policy direction. So I don't see it as temporary. But what I would say is that it is good to embrace the market approach to solving this kind of problem. And just as my colleague said, I'm a firm believer in market solutions. I'm also a believer in the fact that we need to define the boundaries for the market. Because it depends on what kind of structure you have to support the market. It depends on the level of imperfections you have in the market. Because in economics, that's what you call market failures. Market failures are instances where you discover that the market is not giving you the right outcomes. And when market fails, that is the basis for state intervention in an economy. There are also state imperfection, just as you have market imperfections. But we need to identify those things. Now, just as he said, I'm talking of Chief Akinsiju, we now have a foreign exchange market where those who are importing champagne are importing all these things, are in the same market with people who are importing critical raw materials. We just talk about the cost of food. Basic things that the citizens require, some of which require foreign exchange. All of them are in the same market. And we don't have enough foreign exchange to be able to cater for all these people. So that is why I'm saying that even for the market principles, we need some fundamentals to also support it to deliver. If you are in a system where we have serious challenges with this foreign, then we have to, either through the instrumentality of monetary policy or the instrumentality of fiscal policy, to find a way to prioritize for the critical sectors of this economy, so that the vulnerable segments of the economy will not be feeling the impact of this reform as much as they are feeling it. I mean, we have a market now that just coming, as long as the product is not on import prohibition, just come into the space. That is one. Secondly, it is good to narrow the gap between parallel market and the official one. But we don't have to unify at all costs. Because we have seen very serious volatility in the past few months. The economy cannot bear that kind of volatility, where exchange rate is changing almost every week, even sometimes every day. We need a framework to bring some stability within the limits of the capacity of the CBN to ensure that stability.
So what kind of framework would you suggest?
Well, the framework is to define a band. That's okay, we have examined all these fundamentals. Let us set this thing at this band. So that within our limited capacity to intervene, we make sure that we don't go beyond this band. That will reduce the volatility. That is one. Secondly, the parallel market that we are trying to unify. The parallel market is a highly imperfect market. It's a market where all manner of characters are driving demand for foreign exchange. Not all the money that is chasing foreign exchange in parallel market are clean money. So when you have that kind of market, and we are committed rigidly to unifying with that kind of market, then we can create more problems. You know, I admit that, of course, we should not have this wide gap. We have seen all the atrocities that came with under the previous dispensation. But again, in terms of going for this market option, we should not go to the other extreme of it. because there is no system that is absolute. And your system or approach to economic management must also reflect the peculiarities and the context in which you are operating. So that is it. Then, thirdly, we are seeing some relationship between the depreciation in the currency and this additional revenue that is going to government. Apparently, part of this additional revenue in terms of allocation is filtering into the foreign exchange market. So as an option to stabilize, to check this liquidity, perhaps not all this revenue should be distributed. At least we had that experience in the first time when we had huge revenue. Part of those revenue were kept in reserves for the state government. Nobody is saying that it's not their money. But we cannot afford to be releasing all the monies into the system because of the macroeconomic instability that these things are creating. Right. So we need to think out of the box and reckon with our own reality in managing this situation. The CBN is doing its best within the limitations of the reserves. But as we do that, we need to also look at some ways to modify it. And finally, let me also make this, and it's very important. It is the exchange rate for the computation of import duty or the clearing of cargo. We have too much of volatility in that exchange rate. Almost on daily or, every other day, you have changes in that exchange rate. That is not good for international trade. It's disrupting a lot of trade, a lot of international transactions. Because we have computed, we have made an estimate of what your import duty will be. You have filled your firm, you have gotten all the documents. Sometimes at the point of just clearing the cargo, you hear that the exchange rate has been changed in the portal. So I'm appealing to the CBN to please, in the interest of stabilizing this environment, that window for the computation of import duty, we should peg it at maximum of 1,000. And let's leave it there for 6 to 1 year.
All right. Thank you so much.
Stability.
Thank you, Dr. Yusuf. Chief Akisiji, let me come to you. And this is moving away from CBN and its policies. The government just uncovered 32 smuggling routes. Can we defeat smuggling?
Well, the truth is that smuggling has become an economic tradition in Nigeria, and especially if you look at our situation or our location in the West African sub-region, you will realize that we have honed smuggling by geographical peculiarities. We have more than 17,000 kilometers stretch of borders, and we share with close to eight countries. And these countries are dependent on us, and perhaps even more, I don't know if I should say it's unfortunate, historically, we had actually become the food basket of the West African region, perhaps even up to certain countries on the fringes of North Africa. So it's no surprise that high volume of grains from Nigeria found their ways to places like Sudan and at the edges of Algeria, Tunisia, and all that. So we have a geographical location that is naturally inclined, or that even incentivizes smuggling, as it were, because the major defense against smuggling is to have identified borders that are also managed either at the level of fencing by defined ways, that stop movement. When you get to a certain point, there should be a movement restriction, but we don't have that. So there was a time, I think the authorities, as they were playing with the possibility of having a digital border where they will have drones and all that, manning the borders. I don't know what extent that had been implemented, but I think there's a need to control our borders. We we can see the obvious turnout on the volume, the national consumption volume of PMS, for instance, after the removal of fuel. At the point in time, we're doing 66 million liters a day. After the removal of fuel, it came down drastically to about 44 million liters. So, which means that 20 million or something near that liters of fuel had found their ways into our neighboring countries, through smuggling, definitely not through the formal route. So, the option is to see how we can design and, of course, deploy technology to man our borders, as it were.
All right, thank you. Quickly, we're winding down, but quickly before we go tonight.
Quickly, to comment briefly on what's on this smuggling thing. We have a major issue with currency relativity with our neighboring countries. Practically all of them are using CFA. And CFA to Naira has become very, very strong. 2 years ago, 2 Naira can give you 1 CFA, or 3 Naira can give you 1 CFA. Today, you need over 2,000 Naira to get 1 CFA. So it has become extremely profitable to move our products from here to these neighboring countries. And we are surrounded by all of them. Benin, Togo, Mali, Niger, Cameroon, even up to this part of this northern part of Africa. So it's a major incentive. So, and when we are dealing with a crisis, that is why I like what the Nigeria Customs Service has been doing. You don't allow your food to be getting out of the country, irrespective of whatever protocols you have signed. When we had COVID, did you notice how even countries stopped the export of their pharmaceutical products? Even their food products. Even to friendly countries, they stopped it completely. Because you have to take care of your own citizens first before you begin to think of others. So it's a major challenge for us because the incentive to move the products out, because people are making more money now, exporting products and even food items out of the country to neighboring countries.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Yusuf. Quickly before we go, in less than 1 minute, the Vice President has talked about plans by the federal government to recapitalize and restructure the Bank of Agriculture. How can this bolster Nigeria's agriculture sector? And also, how can we make agriculture attractive to young people? In less than 1 minute, if you can.
No, well, it's about providing intervention funds. Not intervention funds in the way it was practiced under the previous dispensation. Because the real sector of the economy, agric, solid minerals, property sector, manufacturing, cannot survive under the current financing framework of the commercial banks, where interest rate is as high as 25–30%, where the tenure of funds is maximum 1 year. You can't drive economic growth with that. So you need these development banks to be properly capitalized, which is what I think the Vice President is talking about, and also the Bank of Industry and some other banks like that. It is very, very necessary to bridge the financing gap for the real sector.
Right. Sadly, we have to go, gentlemen. Thank you so much. I'm certain you know it is always a pleasure having you on Politics Tonight. Thank you so much for your contribution tonight. Dr. Muda Yusuf, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you very much for watching. That marks the end of today's episode of Politics Tonight. But the conversation continues from here. Get in touch with us on Twitter at TVC News NG and at Olajumoke using the hashtag Politics Tonight. We're also on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I am Olajumoke. I'll see you tomorrow.